Hey everybody, I am Michael Lingenfelter here with Rider Remedy, and today I am talking to the riders who have a hollow back. If you're struggling with a hollow back, I'm going to help you understand why those issues exist in the first place, and then some things that we can start to do to help you improve your position in the saddle. Let's take a look at what it looks like to have a hollow back. You can see the rider on the right side has more of an arch in their back and can cause them to slightly tip forward. Over here we have the rounded back, but today we're going to be focusing in on the hollow back rider. So why does the hollow back or the arching of the lower back exist? We can see here a good example of a position where you want to have a more what we call neutral pelvis and spine, and here you have your hollow back or an arched back. The hollow back can be caused by a handful of things. One of the most common that I see is either overactive or underactive muscles. I see this a lot in people who sit. They do a lot of sitting in their jobs, and that sitting is going to cause certain muscles to be longer and stretched while others are being shortened constantly. So you'll have some muscles that are in a lengthened position and some muscles that are in a shortened position. And over time, if you put your body in the same position over and over and over, your body will start to adapt and keep the certain muscles that are shortened shorter and the certain muscles that are lengthened lengthened. And while you're always in these positions as well, what can happen is you're going to have overactive and underactive muscles. So putting yourself in the same position seated is going to cause you to use certain muscles more often and not use certain muscles as often. So again, you'll be getting weaker and stronger in very specific muscles that can lead to this. So it's a combination of overusing and underusing muscles, which can cause us to have muscles that are constantly lengthened and muscles that are constantly shortened. So you can see here that you have some muscles in the back here that look shorter than this. You can see there's a nice long line here, and here you kind of have this curvature where these muscles are really being shortened in the back. And then on the opposite side of that, you have your abdominals that are being lengthened here, and here they're a little bit shorter. So when you have lengthened muscles, that probably means that they're not being used as often, because when muscles are used and contract, they shorten. So whenever you contract your muscles, you're shortening a muscle. And when you're not using a muscle, it may end up being in the lengthened position. So you can imagine if you're sitting, doing a lot of sitting, you never really feel your abdominals. But you feel your back, especially your lower back probably, because there's a lot of contracting going on, and in your muscles, not so much. So what we would want to look to do is contract and strengthen our abdominal muscles, because what they do really well is flex the spine and pelvis, bringing it into a shorter position here. And when you're able to flex and contract the abdominals and get that working better and getting that stronger, it's going to alleviate and take your lower back out of this shortened position and create more of an elongated position for the back. So we want to think weak or lengthened abdominals can cause a shortened and tight lower back. So that's the first one, is going to be working the abdominals into what we call flexion. Your abdominals connect into the rib cage here and into the sternum, and then they also connect down here into your pelvis. And when they contract, they bring those 2 points together, and that's why it pulls you out of that position. Another weak position that you will get if you do a lot of sitting, or potentially get, is in your glutes. So your glutes, when you sit down, are lengthened, and your hip flexors a lot of times are shortened. So if you're sitting down, you don't really use too much of your glutes, and they are in a lengthened position, and they don't often get into a shortened position that they would get with, like, if you were to take if you were to go for a walk, every time you take a step, the leg that's behind you is shortening that glute and using that glute and extending it, pushing it behind your body. And so if you think about sitting down, the whole time you're doing the opposite. Your hip is actually flexed and out in front of you, and your hip never goes into that extended position when you're sitting down. So your glute is lengthened and may be getting weaker because you're not using it to do what it does really well, which is extend the hip behind you. And in tandem with that, another muscle group that helps out in the hip extension is going to be your hamstrings. So we can see here, these blue lines, we want to extend the hip and use the hamstrings, which bend the knee but also play a role in extending the hip. So strengthening those two things are going to be able to help as well, potentially take you out of that arched back, that hollow back position. So going back to our rider, our hollow back rider here, again, this can be caused by weak or inactive or underused or overused muscles, potentially from doing a lot of sitting. It can actually be caused by being overweight as well. So if you're overweight, you've got more weight out in front of you, and your back is going to take the brunt of that. So being overweight can cause this hollowed back. And then lastly, any kind of injury that you may have had in your back, your pelvis, your abdominals, giving birth is a trauma in itself. Things like that can cause you to have weaknesses that lead to this, this arching of the back, causing the hollow back. So if you're wanting to improve your position here, we're going to need to start identifying some of these weaknesses and being able to strengthen them. And you can start with the abdominal strengthening, so the flexion of the spine. And you could work on some hip extension and some hamstring stuff, which we could call knee flexors or bending of the knee. And the combination of those three things may help alleviate some pain that's associated with this, but as well help you control and contract the muscles that help take you out of that arched back. I'm going to be bringing you some of those exercises very soon, but that is the know-how of why this stuff exists, so that way we can start improving your position in the saddle. Let me know if you have any comments below or if this hits home with you. Feel free to share this with a friend or a student of yours who may struggle with this position in the saddle, and I look forward to bringing you more information on this and the exercises to come.